Hello, friends. Today's teaching is a personal one. It's a story of redemption, awakening, and the quiet miracle of seeing clearly after years of fog. It begins with a graduation ceremony in Southeast Asia, but its roots stretch back through war zones, trauma, and the long shadow of regret. In 2002, I was a U.S. diplomat stationed in Indonesia when terrorists bombed a nightclub in Bali. I was the consular officer on duty, tasked with identifying and repatriating the remains of American citizens. Days and weeks of death, body bags, and the stench of loss led to years of PTSD. I lived recklessly, buying motorcycles, volunteering for war zones, distancing myself from everything and everyone, including my daughter, Sarah. Sarah grew up attending an all-girls school where students were grouped into flower cohorts: hibiscus, jasmine, orchid, rose, lily, and Ixora. Sarah belonged to the Ixora group. Her friends called her Sarah Potter for her round glasses and quiet brilliance. I was the absent father, the villain in my own story, watching from afar as she bloomed. But something changed. Slowly, I began to see her, not as a symbol of my failure, but as a flower in full bloom. The gate I thought was locked, envisioned with bars of shame, regret, distance, was never closed. It was only the self that stood in the way. So today I present another modern day koan, this one called the Ixora Gate. A man flew across the sea to attend his daughter's graduation. She belonged to the Ixora cohort, one of 6 flower houses in her school. Ixora blooms in clusters, never alone. He brought his wife and son, but also his fears. Would jealousy bloom? Would regret return? Would the past cast shadows? At the ceremony, he saw his daughter among the Ixora. He did not see his wife. He did not see his former lover. He did not see himself. He only saw the moment. Later, someone asked him, was it not painful to stand between 2 lives? The man replied, I stood before the gate for years, naming its bars, shame, regret, distance. But the gate was never locked. It was never even closed. Only the self stood in the way. Minuit's commentary. In Zen, we speak of the gateless gate, a paradox that invites awakening. The gate is not a barrier, but a mirror. We project our suffering onto it, mistaking our own stories for locks, bars, and chains. Sarah was never the gate. She was the Dharma path. The Ixora cohort, blooming together, reminded me that no flower blooms alone. When I stopped being the villain in my own narrative, I saw her clearly, not as a symbol of my past, but as a radiant part of the present. This is the lesson. Awakening is not about erasing the past. It's about releasing the self that clings to it. Here's my gata. I call this Potter's Bloom. She wore round glasses, and they called her Sarah Potter. But the magic was not in her name. It was in the moment I stopped being the villain and started seeing the flower. I have a few questions for you, as all koans do. Questions for you to consider. If the Ixora blooms in clusters, where is the flower called I? When did the doors of the gate open? How did the self stand in the way? Where did the villain go? What is on the other side of the gate? Who is on the other side of the gate? And now I have a capping verse for this koan. This capping verse is called The Gate That Was Never Closed. For years I stood before the gate, naming its bars, shame, regret, distance. But the gate was never locked. It was never even closed. Only the self stood in the way. I didn't know how to heal. I didn't know how to be her father. I didn't know how to drop the villain's mask. But I could go straight. I could sit. I could breathe. I could see. Thich Nhat Hanh taught that when arranging flowers for the Buddha, we must include a piece of trash, a broken stick, a wilted leaf, a bit of sawdust. Not to hide it, but to honor it. Because in true flower arranging, everything belongs. That brokenness is not a flaw. It's the teaching. My life has been that arrangement. The trauma, the regret, the war, the absence. They are not things I've discarded. They are part of the bouquet. And when I stopped trying to be the hero or the villain, I saw the flower blooming in front of me. Sarah, the Ixora, the moment. Zen does not ask us to be perfect. It asks us to be present. Not to erase the past, but to release the self that clings to it. Not to close the gate, but to realize that it was never locked. I am not the center of the universe. I am one bloom in the cluster. And that is more than enough.